Day 11. So today's topic is about an experience or something that changed me. So I'm going to talk about the most recent one because it's the one I'm operating off of a great deal. Back in mid-December of 2024, I went in for what was sold to me as generally a routine procedure. I was having a little trouble swallowing food, and they go in there with a scope and they will stretch a ring that they discover after a little investigation with a camera. Um, and they'll do this once, twice, three times throughout a year. So I was going for my second time, and well, let's just say things didn't go as expected. Um, Something went wrong, and at the end of a typically 20-minute procedure, they were frantically trying to figure out what had happened, because I wound up with a perforated esophagus. And this is a very serious injury. It means the pipe that goes from my mouth down to my stomach had gained holes. And that's pretty bad, because anytime you swallow water, food, saliva, anything, it goes down that tube. And if there's holes, that means it goes into your chest cavity. And depending on the size and how many, this injury has a really high mortality rate if it isn't caught early. Thankfully, I didn't get to walk out. I literally was woken up, was told by a doctor who was barely keeping it together that what had happened, and that my next several weeks were going to be very difficult because I had to have emergency surgery at that point, and they tried several things to try to keep uh, whatever I swallowed out of my chest, which they were having a lot of success. I was eventually transferred to a major thoracic hospital, where again I had emergency surgery the next day. Um, so I ended up spending nearly 3 weeks not able to eat or swallow water. And that experience really changes a person's outlook about what hunger is and what thirst is and what inconvenience is. And there is, when you have gone without something for so long, it's interesting how your mind will start to dwell on it. Um, so for me, just the act of drinking water almost took on this uh, precious, I dare say sacred, but it became very valuable to me. The idea of being able to swallow again. And there's a great deal of pain involved because they, you know, they cut me open pretty good, and had to do some exploratory to try to understand what the injury really was. And they moved my stomach. I had gained nearly 700 cc's of fluid in my left lung. So they had to extract that and clean it up because it was a mix of saliva and snot and all kinds of stuff. You swallow on reflex. You don't realize that you're doing it. Um, and then the body starts reacting to that and starts flooding the area with interstitial fluid. So it got kind of bad pretty fast, and I had two test tubes hanging off my left side with garden hoses that went about 25 feet to these storage areas where it would collect the fluid for sampling and measuring. Um, I got a feeding tube that went through my nose all the way down into my stomach, and that was not pleasant. And then I got a gastro feeding tube where they punch a hole through the wall of your stomach and your abdomen, and you got a hose hanging out with a connector on it. And so I was on a feeding tube for about 3 weeks. Um, the only reason it was that short is because it dislocated when they sent me home. They sent me home for 10 days, and I wasn't recovering well. Uh, a blind man trying to feed himself through a feeding tube. It's quite tricky because it's like an IV bag that hangs above you, and you got to put liquid. You know, it's a liquid food essentially. It's a lucerne if anyone's curious. Um, but this stuff, you connect it to yourself, and you have to wait. And I got to where I was basically done feeding in 5 minutes because they were slowly starving me because I was hungry all the time. I lost 25 pounds in the space of 4 weeks. Um, and also in this time, I learned that when you're overhydrated, it's not fun. I had a nurse misunderstand the instructions because they give you water with this process as well, and she was giving me 200 milliliters on every dose of water rather than spreading it out during the feeding time. So I was getting 400 and 600 per feeding, um, which doesn't sound much until you realize I was getting fed 5 times a day. So I don't drink a whole lot of water normally. And so they went past my usual limits pretty fast. And so I literally had water coming out of my nose. I was coughing it up in my mucus. I started sweating and hallucinating. And then I passed out for about half a day. So it wasn't fun. But during all that time, I'm in the hospital alone because they took me away from my family. And my family, we all have our own challenges. We all have a disability in one way or another. And none of us drive. And we were already kind of strapped for money. And well, you, you can see where this is going. Um, so I spent a lot of time in the hospital alone, um, trying to cope with this new reality, this new level of pain, chest tubes in your side hanging off there, people kicking it, bumping it, and you rolling on it. It and then the abrasions on your backside because they keep you up about 40 degrees. Otherwise, your stomach will actually leak into your chest and bad things happen. Um, it's it's a terrible experience, and I can go into a lot more graphic detail. But I got about 10 days into it, and it was at that point where I was so thirsty, and they had just started getting some sort of nutrients in me, and I had been losing quite a bit of weight, uh, and pumping me with saline. I just was at the bottom, and I knew this was one of those moments where it could break me or remake me. And for one of those unusual moments, I knew I had a conscious choice, decision. It was that time. I could either let it break me, become a victim, and probably not recover, or not let this thing beat me. I would recover. I would come back just as strong or stronger. Um, I to me, I had faced death because I I was at that 50% mortality rate, um, just because of the way things had been progressing, in the sense they couldn't stop the leakage, and it'd been several days, and all the antibiotics and precautions they were taking to keep me safe from the environment. Um, it was close. Um, so I faced my true mortality, in the sense that I was looking at it. This could go either way, and I could just lay there and die, or come back stronger. And maybe I'm being over dramatic here, but that's how it felt. And our feelings and emotions play a very large role in the outcomes in our lives. And I chose actively, consciously, not to let it beat me. I chose to come back and be stronger, and to take whatever came. And a lot of stuff came, and a lot of things didn't go my way. Uh, Particularly when that feeding tube dislocated. That was not fun. Um, Going back to the ER, and then having them evaluate whether to put it back or take it, and fighting for them to take it. Trying to get them to really look and see how well I had healed by then. Um, and then the thing that was really interesting, living in uh, that that room, um, there was a man there who was screaming in pain every 2 hours, begging them to stop. I don't know what they were doing to him, but I was very grateful and thankful I was not him. I mean, I was kind of at that point in a few weeks before, but not where I'm screaming at the top of my lungs for hours on end. He was a strong voice in the beginning. 18 hours later, he wasn't. This stuff changes you. And I pray that man has survived and is doing well now. I never got to see him or talk to him. He was just someone down the hall, waking me up every couple of hours and showing me why I should be grateful. He made me feel a level of gratitude I had not felt in decades. And for that, thank you. Whoever you were, I thank you. But on the other side of this, I decided to stick to my word, have integrity, to have value in myself and the people around me, to treasure the good and bad. Because those bad moments, those things we want to avoid, shape us. They can break us or make us stronger. And many times it's a choice. And I chose to become stronger. It's why I'm here in YouTube land. I've been debating on this for months, um, and procrastinating in one way or another, and saying I don't have the skills, and not believing that a blind man can do this. How how can I reach a sighted audience who don't understand, who can't relate, who can't empathize? I don't know. And honestly, it doesn't matter. There is somebody out there who wants to hear what I have to say. And I'm tired of hiding from that person. I hope that I can help somebody with whatever I say and do now and in the future. So that major injury and the recovery that took about 10 weeks, I am pretty much on the other side of it. I am still recovering from the muscle loss and the weight loss. Um, my voice has changed from it. Uh, Swallowing is different, and I'm very cautious about how I eat now. And I watch my diet very closely because I was diabetic before on oral medicine. Now I'm on insulin, and I may never get off of it. I don't know. Um, there's some hesitation even to get off of it because at least now I got an option to get me out of the rafters when I slip. I am human. I slip. I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. I don't always keep my word, but I do my damnedest now. And I think that has made me a better person. Probably has pissed a few people off because I'm less tolerant too, which is the other side of this. We give up on ourselves so easily. We give ourselves excuses and then give no one else grace to be human. And that's not right. We need grace on both sides for ourselves and them. But we also need to hold ourselves accountable. And we also need to hold our friends and family accountable to the things they want. Don't let their weaknesses get them, help yourself. So I guess that's my rant slash sermon here. That's how it changed me, and it made me realize I wanted my business more, and I still don't know what it is. I feel idiotic for not knowing. Um, I am adrift. In, I I am so adrift. I'm too close, and I have no one to reflect back to. No one to tell me that, oh, you're good at that. You ought to do a business around that. Oh, I would pay money for that. To me, it's all ordinary, common. No one, I wouldn't pay anyone to do it. And that's the problem. I'm too close. So that's what I'm working on. I'm working on being a better person. I'm hoping to get myself out of this mess I've fallen into since going blind. And I want to have purpose again. And someone out there is part of that purpose. And I kind of like that idea. Someone out there is going to help me. They don't know who they are, and I don't know who they are. But someone's going to say something to me, and it's going to resonate. It's going to rock my world. And I am looking forward to it. Till next time.